The integrity of India's electoral process is under the scanner like never before. The intensive revision of electoral rules has taken place many times in the past, but today it has become more urgent than ever. The reason is simple. Many INDI Alliance governments, especially under Congress rule, have allegedly opened the doors for large-scale manipulation by enrolling illegal immigrants into Aadhaar with false identities and then pushing them onto India's electoral rolls. What began as a so-called reform during the UPA years has now turned into a direct assault on India's democracy. The story of how Indian citizens' rights were compromised and how illegal infiltrators were granted the same democratic privileges needs to be placed before the people of India clearly and fearlessly. The idea of a national identity card was first mooted under the visionary leadership of Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Home Minister L.K. Advani in 2002. The plan was clear: identify Indian citizens and differentiate them from non-citizens and illegal residents. But in 2004, when Manmohan Singh took office as Prime Minister, the vision was diluted beyond recognition. In 2009, the UPA government formed the Unique Identification Authority of India with Nandan Nilekani as its chairman. Instead of strengthening India's democracy, Aadhaar under UPA became a tool for weakening the very foundation of our electoral process. Former Union Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar recently explained this in detail in an article for the Indian Express. He pointed out how between 2009 and 2012, there was no serious debate, no parliamentary discussion and no attempt to explain the charter, technology or safeguards of UIDAI. In 2010, Aadhaar was launched not for citizens but for residents, a deliberate dilution of the citizenship criteria. This was not a small oversight, it was a dangerous compromise. The Standing Committee on Finance under Yashwant Sinha strongly objected to this dilution. They specifically warned that citizenship requirements had been compromised and that private players were enrolling individuals without proper checks or due diligence. But the UPA government brushed aside these concerns and chose to push Aadhaar forward without accountability. The committee in fact rejected the National Identification Authority of India Bill 2010 and called for fresh legislation with statutory backing. But instead of taking corrective measures, the UPA government rebranded UID as Aadhaar in 2011 and continued with business as usual. Enrollment began through a network of private agencies, many of which were riddled with loopholes and lacked even the most basic verification standards. By 2012, Aadhaar enrollment had crossed 40 crore, but with no serious checks in place. Reports began emerging that large number of illegal immigrants were securing Aadhaar with fake documents, yet the Singh government turned a blind eye. Even when the Union Home Ministry under P. Chidambaram insisted that UIDAI should be linked with National Population Register for security reasons, the Prime Minister's office overruled it. By greenlighting Aadhaar as a standalone resident ID, the UPA knowingly allowed infiltrators from Bangladesh, Myanmar and beyond to become part of India's official identity ecosystem. Between 2011 and 2013, opposition leaders and activists repeatedly raised alarms in Parliament, but the Congress government dismissed the concerns, allowing non-citizens to get Aadhaar and eventually linking Aadhaar to voter ID in 2013. This one move alone jeopardized the sanctity of India's electoral rolls. By the time the Modi government came to power in 2014, Aadhaar enrollments have already crossed 65 crore and an estimated rupees 15,000 to 20,000 crore of taxpayers' money had been spent on a flawed, insecure system. The mess left behind by UPA was massive. At that point, there were strong calls to scrap Aadhaar entirely. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in his characteristic style, chose a path of reform rather than waste. Instead of throwing away crores of public money, the BJP government decided to clean up Aadhaar and strengthen it with due diligence. In 2016, the Aadhaar Act was passed, which tightened the enrollment process, introduced stronger checks and gave statutory backing to Aadhaar for the first time. Even then, the skeletons of UPA's Aadhaar mismanagement continued to tumble out. The CAG's 2020 report confirmed what many had feared. Large numbers of Aadhaar enrollments between 2010 and 2016 were completed without proper documentation or oversight of private enrollment partners. The 2021 CAG report went further, stating bluntly that the quality of Aadhaar data was too poor to even establish uniqueness of identity. It revealed that UIDAI had not prescribed any concrete proof of residence and was merely relying on self-declaration. This meant that anyone, including illegal immigrants, could simply sign a form and enter the system. The report concluded that there was no assurance that all Aadhaar holders were even genuine residents, let alone citizens of India. This is the damning legacy of UPA's Aadhaar policy. By deliberately blurring the line between citizens and non-citizens, they compromised both electoral integrity and national security. The result is that thousands, if not lakhs, of illegal immigrants found their way into India's electoral rolls. This is not just a matter of faulty paperwork. This is a direct assault on India's democracy. Because electoral rolls are the foundation of free and fair elections, when infiltrators and non-Indians are given voting rights, the voice of genuine citizens is suppressed. Demographics in sensitive states are being manipulated and local political outcomes are being influenced by those who have no right to be here in the first place. The Modi government has acted decisively to clean up this mess, but the problem is deep-rooted. The intensive revision of electoral rolls is not just a routine exercise anymore. It has become a national necessity. Border states like West Bengal, Assam and Tripura are obvious hotspots for illegal enrollment. But the contamination of voter lists is not restricted to them alone. It is happening across India. The fight to protect India's democracy is not just at the ballot box, but in ensuring that the ballot box itself is not hijacked by those who have no claim to India's future. The Congress and its INDI Alliance partners need to answer why they chose to compromise national security and democracy in favor of appeasement politics. Why was this citizenship diluted to residency? Why were private players allowed unchecked access to Aadhaar enrollments? And why was Aadhaar made eligible as voter ID proof when glaring loopholes had already been exposed? These are not just policy mistakes, they are deliberate political choices with long-term consequences for India. India's democracy, its national security and its electoral processes can only be as strong as the integrity of its voter rolls. The Aadhaar mismanagement of the UPA years stands as a stark reminder of how careless governance can compromise the nation. Today, with Prime Minister Modi's leadership, India has the opportunity to clean up the system, secure electoral rolls and ensure that only genuine citizens decide the nation's future. The intensive revision of electoral rolls must therefore be pursued with full force, not just in border states but across the country. This is not a partition issue. This is a national issue. A democracy contaminated by illegal votes is no democracy at all. It is now the duty of every nationalist Indian to stand behind the effort to protect the sanctity of the vote and secure the destiny of Bharat.